Epic Action, a Star Wars Unlimited podcast. Your source for community building, tournament tips, deck building discussion, and all things Star Wars Unlimited.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Epic Action, a Star Wars Unlimited podcast. This is episode 15. I'm Raul. I'm here with Nick, Paul, and a very special guest, Jeff Glazer from the Porg Depot. How you guys doing?
Doing good.
Great. Doing good, man. Doing good.
Thanks for joining us. Just want to remind any of our listeners out there, we appreciate any subscribes, listen, follow, all the social media stuff to help us grow and spread the word. Today we're going to open with a icebreaker of which period of time would you like to be a Jedi in? Start with Paul on that one.
Oh, they went to me first.
Yeah.
Man, this is a two-parter for me. Like, the first part is like you're gonna have a lot of friends and like a lot of allies if you go to like the Clone Wars era.
Mm-hmm.
But like you're gonna die. Like, this came over, buddy. Double-edged sword there. But as much as people might hate this next suggestion, I would say post episode 9 would probably be pretty amazing time to be a Jedi. I mean, I don't know if you guys.
I don't know. I didn't know we were going there.
Post episode 9, man. Like you're out there. You got one person that's taking care of the books and sort of like, it's kind of low commitment at this point. Like you're not really doing the policing stuff. You're just kind of like, what I can do.
Commitment.
You don't have a Sith Inquisitors chasing after you, so yeah, kind of wide world out there for Jedi after Palpatine dies again.
Are we sure?
Yeah. Somehow, for now. All right, Jeff, what about you?
Yeah, I had similar thoughts. The question was coming a little bit, but it was the right, like that pre-Order 66 time frame, right? But for the same reason Paul said, there's that downside. I was like, I'm thinking I'd have to almost go Old Republic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. You got lots of friends. You are the respected Jedi. The Sith are not really on the rise yet. Just enjoying being a Jedi. Just the power and the respect and the not being hunted. Seems like a good time to be a Jedi.
Nice. All right. So I say this not having read a ton of the material of it, but High Republic seems pretty cool. It's like the height of the Jedi. You're like, you're the big boss in town. You're not getting hunted by Inquisitors. I know there's like some stuff that's going on like in that time era that probably sucks, but overall it seems like the Jedi are doing good at that time. Like they're living large, doing what they want to do, which I guess is eventually what leads to their downfall. But for the 200 or so years before that, let's rock it.
Yeah, so the reason I came up with this one is I found a YouTube video that just was like the history of the Jedi to fall asleep to. And it's like 3.5 hours long. Going all the way from like the first, thing of, and obviously this is Legends, not like canon, but just going from how did the Jedi start? And I made it maybe 30, 40 minutes into this thing. I haven't finished it, but I've definitely not read a lot of those Legends pieces. I was going to say the High Republic as well. Yeah. Just because it's like, yeah, there's stuff going on. But if you didn't want to involve yourself, you can just be like, yeah, deuces, y'all go deal with that. Like, I'll chill with Kiadi Mundi over here. Like, just Kiadi, me, and Yoda just chilling, doing whatever we want, doing however, advancing our skills. Just nothing like really, there's no threats. There's nothing going on. I would like to see him do a little bit more with that time period. Just from, like, I've enjoyed reading the books. They're pretty poorly written overall. I mean, it's science fiction, like adventure theory. Like most of those books, like I love spy thriller type books. They're also poorly written and they're also very repetitive. But you know what you're getting. It's an enjoyable, just like, hey, I need to decompress from everything else. So yeah, I've enjoyed it. I love that
Nice.
we're about to get some Nihil cards with Marcion Rowe and all the crew there. I think that's actually very thematic.
Mhm.
What they're doing there with those cards, which I love that they just keep hitting it on the head with probably 90% of the cards they make is
Nice.
not only thematic but usable for the most part. You're never like, oh yeah, they just made this card, these group of cards just because they're thematic, but they're completely unusable. Other than I guess Twilight of the Republic there, that whole set. But
So I did do a
yeah.
little lore dive when they revealed the flying Toblerone. What's that ship called? It's the one that when destroyed you do 6 damage.
Oh yeah,
The Legacy Run.
Legacy
I mean,
Run.
that's what starts the whole
Yeah.
problems in the High Republic.
Yeah, so I know anything about
So-
that. So that was cool to look it up and learn a little bit more about that era and through just looking through a specific ship. Cool.
I honestly think their world building and how they set up those, like the High Republic, is actually pretty good. I actually pretty much that's the one thing I really did enjoy about it. I do enjoy that there is a bit of a mystery around things. It's not like as clear of like, oh yeah, I know what I'm getting because I'm in the Clone Wars time period. I know basically everything that's going on. You really don't, and they don't really make an effort always to explain everything going around. So it does leave a little mystery, and like, I think that was a little cool part of the High Republic.
All right. Well, I'm finishing up my current audiobooks. I might have to start looking at some of those. All right. Cool. Well, today we're going to be talking about the Battlegrounds PQ that Jeff and I attended. We're going to be talking about Data Vault, and kind of discussing how that's shaping the meta right now, especially through the last couple of big events have been taken by Data Vault. And we're going to dive into some of our favorite new spoilers that have come out. So let's start with the Battlegrounds PQ. As I said, both Jeff and I attended it. Pretty packed event. We had 67 players after whatever final drops we had.
They figured out who didn't come and all that.
Yeah. Like Rick got matched up with someone who wasn't there round one, so he had a pretty easy round one. Yeah, I took Data Vault Kira with not too many modifications. Pretty much, I think Stork's list has been floating around. The only thing I kind of added to it was I went up to 3 Super Laser Blast, and I sprinkled in some timely. It's not an intervention. The smuggle card lets you ambush. I'm confused now.
Timely intervention.
Yeah, I'm confused now with timely reinforcements, which is one of Normal's favorite cards. But which I ended up not using too many times. But when I did get the dream off of either double use of the reinforcement walker or Avenger or even Devastator dropping down, deleting what's in space and on the ground, it was worth it, I would say. Jeff, what did you bring?
I brought Poe Yellow,
Okay.
and I had brought Poe Yellow to the big Richmond event, and I started the day pretty well. So, but decided to make some changes. Turns out most of the changes I made were for the worse.
Yeah.
So I did worse at the PQ than I had done previously with Poe Yellow. I learned a lot about what if I wanted to keep trying that deck. I think I have a version I'm working on right now that I think is better than either of the two I've played with. So I started the day okay. I was hoping Biggs on a dilapidated speeder would play out better than it did, and it rarely was useful. So I had fun. Learned a lot about the deck as an idea, but yeah, didn't place terribly well in the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, with that size pool and with the caliber of players there, you basically had to either go undefeated or can only really drop one game. It's evidenced by the fact that the top 8, they all did take intentional draws, which I'm not bashing on them or anything. It's part of the game. I think the tournament probably was one round too long, which I think that's what it led to. But basically, if you weren't X and 1, you weren't getting into the top there.
Yeah.
But they took what I saw, it was 3 or 4 intentional draws.
Yeah, top 8.
All top 8.
Yeah. Yeah, top
Yeah,
8
but
table.
wasn't it like, was it just the last round or was it like
Yeah.
the last 3 rounds?
Last round.
Just the
Okay.
last round.
Yeah.
Maybe I
Um,
saw something different, but it was like, I thought
But
I
yeah,
saw
there was
one
enough
where
people at 5-1 going into the last round that an intentional draw meant they were 5-1-1.
mhm.
And number 9 was 4-2, so even if they won, they'd be 5-2. So
Yeah.
they knew if they all intentionally drew, they all get in.
Right.
It was literally, which to that point about it just being sort of one round too long is, some people were upset, but ostensibly they had obviously placed the top 8 at that point. Had it
Mhm.
been one shorter, they just would have been the top 8. So
Yeah. So yeah. Just a quick rundown some of my matches. Kira, I played against Kylo Tarkentown round 1. And he was good, but the surprise of that game was Brain Invader. So he pretty much teched out specifically to go against the Kira deck. And I hadn't seen Brain Invaders on the board before. Like, I've seen the card, but it was cool to actually see it play. So basically, he played that, and he blanks out Kira from having any ability. So shuts down her flip, does nothing. If I bring her out at that point, I have to so I had to basically choose between taking out Brain Invaders as a takedown or saving Overwhelm Barrage. So obviously, you got to take out the brainworms, and he just was able to power through all the damage that it couldn't keep up with. So well played. He got me 2-0. Round 2, I played against Dylan. And I'm bringing up Dylan because he was mentioning that he won a couple weeks ago, and I think on some episode Nick was like, I don't remember the guy's name. I was like, that's Dylan. So shout out to you, Dylan, for playing with us. He played Han 2 Data Vault, so him and I have played this before a few times, and that's a tough matchup for Han. My favorite part of that was I got to double Overwhelming Barrage on a Devastator. So I had already Devastator on the board. He had like 3 or 4 units. I played Overwhelming Barrage. I cleared those 4 units, 3 or 4 units. He played it either home 1. He played home 1 and brought something back, and then I played Overwhelming Barrage again, cleared the board, and then swung for 14 to basically like close out the game. So that was pretty brutal. Yeah. Me just having those 2 was pretty good. Next up, I played against Casey with Vader for yellow. I think this is the deck that Kira has a really hard time against just because of how wide and how quick it goes. So unfortunately, I lost that one, but Casey was a great opponent. He got the lurking tie out with the Vader. Yeah, I just couldn't do anything about it. Next, I played against Austin. He was playing Sabine ECL. I won this one 2-0. He let me play Traitors a couple too many times. So he loaded up his green squadron, put a Chewie on it. Oh, that's mine now. I think that happened twice, both games, and that's really what got me through with the damage on that one. One cool thing, just maybe common knowledge, but a rules thing that came up. So I had his one of his ships with the Luke pilot, and I played Super Laser Blast to kill everything on the board. So just to clarify with the judges, we wanted to find out who gets the Luke, and it would be the owner of the card would get that. Because Traders lets me own the unit, control the unit, but doesn't let me control technically the pilot attached to it. So it's something to keep in mind for future games. Round 5 was against our very own Rick. So I got paired up with Rick, who I drove down with. He's also playing Sabine ECL, so I was feeling okay, but Rick is just such a good player that he knows how to read play lines very well. So I had no answer to his wrecker. He hit me with a cause to believe in for like 8 damage back to back, and that was pretty much both games there. Well, lastly, I was debating whether or not to stay for it for another round or not, but I was going to try to get my Rick's SOS up so he can make it to the top. At that point, it was really a mute point because it didn't matter since we both had lost 2 games. But we were trying, we were hoping. So I faced another Vader for yellow, thinking, "Oh, I'm done here." But I actually managed to pull that through. Same thing. First game he didn't see a lurking tie, so I was able to keep up with the damage, and actually he let me get the OB off, so I cleared his board when I flipped out Kira. But I was telling Rick, I dug deep and I pulled out a win, then he was going to drop next round because he lost. So that was my quick rundown. We decided to drop at that point and go get some crab legs. We pulled Jeff with us as well, so that was fun. What were your matches like, Wood?
So my first one was Luke Green. Luke won. Spark Rebellion. Obviously, it wasn't one of the big tournaments, so he wasn't technically showcase chasing. But maybe he was planning or trying to play it out. I don't know if he went to Minneapolis with it, or he was trying to, or he just still had it left over from Richmond. I was able to win that one. Generally speaking, the Poe yellows a lot in space and pretty fast, and Luke was on the ground, so giving them shields. I'm like, okay, I'm not I'm not attacking into them, and you're not attacking into me. So go ahead, use your resources to put some
Yeah,
shields on
and you're
them.
gonna underplay everything.
Yeah, and I'll just outrace you. So that went all right. Nice player. I don't remember his name, to be honest. Second round, I faced off against Rick and his Sabine ECL. And again, actually, I have found my Poe Yellow deck has been generally pretty good into Sabine. The 25-point base gives me that they playing on with the ECL just gives me that added need because I'm playing on a 30-point. So having that extra 5-point lead, and their ambush targets, when they want to use them on their Poe or their Wrecker, I'm not on the ground. So again, their ECL is going relatively unused. Most people start to figure out they might as well just use it on an A-wing and get rid of one of my ships. But that's relatively minor in the long run. To give me 5 extra points, they lose their ship, I lose mine, whatever, we trade. And I'm still, taking advantage of that original base lead, but saving it for, usually in game 1, people, I don't remember whether Rick did or not, they'll save it for that K2SO or that Wrecker or that Poe. And I'm like, okay. And then the game sort of ends usually on resource 5 anyway, so we're both racing, and with the added Poe jumping from ship to ship, it stays nicely in the lead. Game 3 was Vader Yellow for me, and that was fun. I was playing a gentleman who had come with a few other people, and it was fun just because he looked at my deck and he goes, I did not prepare for this. I have no idea what I should pull from my sideboard. I have no idea what you're going to do to me. I don't know how this deck is going to, fight me. And that one's interesting because we're both racing in space, but they're swarming with ties, which aren't enough to get rid of my ships. And I have some tempo cards in there. The skirmisher that taps something down. I do have some Leias to throw on the ground and tap something down. So when they flip their Vader and make a really big ship, I just exhaust it. So was able to win those races. So I was 3-0. And I went to the table 1 on stream and played Ryan there, who's playing Han2 Blue.
Okay.
He won game 1. I absolutely embarrassingly made a horrible on-stream misplay in game 2 that fundamentally probably cost me the game. I missed hitting his base for 3 points, and we ended the game. He had 28 on his base, so had I, who knows, right? So he ends up winning game 2, so that gives me my first loss, and it was downhill from there. Game 5 was Kira Green, Kira Data Vault. And that had been my nemesis. I hadn't quite figured out how to build my deck or play my deck. Some of it my own fault. They loved me, right? I'm putting pilots down. They're like, great, 2 for wanting you. Thank you. Overwhelming barrage on a whole bunch of little itty bitty ships, clearing the board, no problem. So I lost Kira Green. I played out my 6th game anyway, and I actually played another Poe deck, but it was Poe Green. And it was actually the guy who did make top 64 in Richmond with a Poe deck. So I had heard rumors of him because we were both playing Poe at Richmond. So I got to play him, and his Poe Green deck crushed my Poe Yellow deck. It was he was definitely outracing me, doing the same kind of stuff. But his ECL was more useful for him, and him being able to play Chewies and Lukes and blue leaders was just wrecking my space, and then there's no targets for my pilots, and so he was outpacing me 2 games in a row, no problem for him. And then I went and got crabs.
Nice.
Yeah, nothing else. We had some good food. Yeah, it was a great event. It was at Battlegrounds. I want to say Midlothian.
Yeah,
or was it Mechanics? Yeah, Midlothian. Awesome store, lots of space, so didn't really feel too cramped. Lots of stuff to check out. So picked up a carbonite pack. Didn't get anything crazy, but they still have some stuff in stock. So check them out if you're in that area. Yeah. So let me pull up the winner here. I got the winner on the screen here. It was Ray Data Vault who won the whole thing. This deck's been floating around for a little bit. It has all the same stuff, the XP. Pretty standard deck, I think, from what we've been seeing. What do you guys think about this deck?
Me, I'll go.
Yeah, because I know you've
So,
been playing it.
I've been playing it for 6 weeks now, and I've been playing it pretty regularly. It's right in that same wheelhouse as Luke 1 green, and it follows a lot of the same lines. I have a great time playing it. I've won the majority of my matches with it. So I'm on 2 losses with it, and I'm having a good time. It's a good go. I'm not going to give you guys, a lines breakdown on this. It's got a lot of restore. It keeps you in the game, and it can go long. Cure Data Vault's a little bit of a hard matchup, and I'd say it's about a 50-50 shot.
Yeah, I mean, it has some of the best, looking list here, like some of the MVP blue, hero, green, blue cards. Talking about Village Protectors, of course, Battlefield Marines, the Valley Drop. We'll do Skywalker from set 1, of course. That if you're running blue hero and you're not running him, you probably did something wrong.
Right.
Yeah. So that was a good. I'm not sure who here is playing the finals, but they made it all the way to the end, and this who took the PQ. So congratulations to Saw CTV on your win there. And then over the weekend, just kind of an aside, we had the Minneapolis Regional, and that was also won by a Data Vault deck, wasn't it?
Yeah,
took
Kira
it?
Data Vault.
Kira Data Vault.
But it's very different than your deck. If you have a chance, go look at the deck list.
Okay.
I was looking at it yesterday just because, as all of you guys probably know by now, I'm playing Asajj Data Vault, which I think actually has a lot more play, especially into like the Vader yellow. Definitely, like that's a very easy match for me because it's like, oh yeah, put your 1 health thing out there. Okay, targeted ping, and so you can just, as long as you know how to play it, it's fairly easy. I think it gives you a little bit more in the matchup against Kira too. I mean, if you flip your Asajj out and they flip your Kira out, okay, you've got grit. Now you're at a 7 attack thing, and I mean, you're trading with. It either forces them to trade with your Asajj, or take even more damage, and then you get even a higher OB at the time. So you flip, great. They flip, they damage you. You OB, wipe their entire board. It's pretty nice. I know Raul has hated me a few times for that.
Yeah.
Well, I was making some tweaks, and I'm on like tweak 8 or 9 version, and this was literally slapped together right before Richmond. So we went from slapping it together and being like, "Oh, I think I stumbled onto something here," to now I'm like knee deep into it, and I definitely owe people video updates on that, but it's gonna be a lot of like, here's how we went from this all the way down to where we're at now. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a huge difference in what has been floating around as a Kira Data Vault deck, and then what Wu won with.
I will check that
on
sure.
Sunday. Yeah.
So I know you had a question about, was the results of either both RPQ and the regional that we saw, like, was that consistent with what we were expecting, what we were thinking was going to happen?
For sure. That's right on the money.
Yeah, I think Control has a really strong play into so many decks. There's a lot of controlling cards that they can play them on curve. They've given them lots of opportunities. That it's a hard matchup for so many decks.
Yeah, I mean, I think really my question was, given that that's really what we expected, a lot of data vault, a lot of different like control style matches, which for at least the last 6 months or so has not really been the case. And does that kind of change like the way we think about the game overall? Like, is there? I think quite a few videos at this point have kind of answered that question of like, hey, the meta's wide open. You know, it's got a lot of different things that are viable, and you can't tech for everything. So you're gonna have losses in there. You're gonna have, matchups that just don't favor you, and if you get the ones that do favor you, great. If you don't, um, sorry, not your day. It's not because you're necessarily a bad player. It's not because you had a poor deck construction or you made mistakes. It's just, hey, there's something that works well against your deck, but maybe not against if they had matched up against something else. So that's, I think everybody's kind of in agreement that it's a healthy thing and that it's fun. It's not just the same thing over and over again. You get to see a lot of variety. I mean, we talked about just the difference between like Asajj and Kira Data Vault, and it's fairly similar, but there's a lot of different things that like I will try to do with that I would not try to do in Kira, because it just doesn't benefit you in Kira. Always to play a certain way. You're playing a lot more units on that lower end side than I probably would. And I play closer to a lot more removal or things I can ping to then ping somebody else. Like you would think about in Kira, if you have your Hylabon Enforcer, you're like, cool, I'm gonna put him down, I'm gonna ping him for 2, put a shield on him, and then I'm just gonna run over your little Pike Sentinel. It's like, okay, cool. I'm gonna ping my Pike Sentinel for 1, ping your shield, and then we're gonna trade, which is exactly what I would like to have, and I'm gonna draw a card. So I think there's a lot of interesting ways to think about the game overall, which is kind of what led me to like the Data Vault discussion, and luckily Jeff and the team over there kind of put together a huge article,
We did.
which we will only very lightly touch on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So get
we'll
into
move on
Porg Depot.
Yeah, sure. I was thinking we had a couple more questions, but I think we can move on to the Porg Depot. So
Oh, sure.
yeah. Let's see.
Oh, the one thing, are you guys still like? Because I wasn't at the PQ, I didn't really watch any of the regionals. I didn't see what the final numbers were. How do we feel about where we're at with like growth in the game? That was like my other big
The
question.
Richmond one had just shy of 600 at 597. The Minnesota one had over 600. I think it was like 640-ish. So seemingly good sizes, for a game that's been out basically a year. And for tournaments that would require travel for most, I mean, we were lucky enough to be close to the Richmond one, but for events that this early that require travel, seems like a healthy number. I haven't,
Yeah,
For sure.
dive into what other games get at this point, but
definitely.
Sweet.
It's only up from here, I think. So
Yeah.
awesome. So here, let's talk a little about Porg Depot. Jeff is one of our locals. We've been, jamming games with him at your hobby place and a couple other stores in the area for the last, year or so, I want to say. Made some cool. Actually, got my Kira showcase from you. So
Yeah, that's
say
right.
that proudly. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Porg Depot. Who are you guys? What do you do?
Porg Depot is predominantly, there's 3 of us, and then we have some other people that also help us out. But namely our like wives and some other friends. But the 3 of us, we've just been friends since junior high, and we're old now, so it's been over 35 years. We've played a lot of CCG, TCGs over the years. We used to play Magic, and then we did a Decipher Star Wars game, and we were actually pretty competitive in that. Going to a lot of big tournaments. When they first put out their ELO ratings, for example, I was like 3rd in the world. So fairly competitive in that, and then that game died. So then, of course, they came out with the Wizards of the Coast Star Wars TCG. and we tried to be competitive in that as a group. And my friend Ben, he went to their first world tournament and placed pretty highly. But basically, it's been sort of Porg Depot then has also sort of been, as we've grown and moved away from each other, gotten married, had kids, and done stuff. It's sort of just also been a way for us to, keep in touch with each other with something to like chat about when we're kind of bored at work. So we're on Slack a lot, like, ooh, what should next week's article be? And ooh, what kind of random Porg art can we create on ChatGPT? So and some of the art we haven't ever shared is hilarious, but we go through
sure.
a lot of iterations, believe it or not, before we land on the ones that we do post on the website. It's all AI generated art though, and we just find it hysterical.
Yeah.
So we try to incorporate a lot of Porg jokes into our stuff, while still trying to create some useful articles and useful tools, so that people actually want to come visit the site, whether it be for our brand of humor or for the useful bits and pieces we add.
Definitely, I really like the lightheartedness of like the whole site and like all the little funny Porg puns you guys throw in there. So, always enjoy checking out your articles. You got some cool tools on your site. So tell us about the. I'm not going to butcher the name. The things starts with an H.
A hypergeometric calculator.
That one, yeah.
Which we of course called the Porg geometric, but yeah. So hypergeometric calculator. Hypergeometric is not something we created. That's a concept that already exists. That is probably our most used tool, because what it lets you do is say, I have this many copies of a card or so obviously with a max at 3, but if you wanted to do like first turn drops, so if you wanted to know if I have 12 cards I could play on turn 1, and I have a 50 card deck or a 60 card deck now with the data vault being a particular thing, what is the odds I will draw a first turn play if I have this many, including my mulligan? And we even used it to write an article when the new bases came out for like the 9 card base that lets you draw 9 but no mulligan, so that you could, or Colossus, which only lets you draw 5, so that you could see how many copies of or how many turn 1 plays or how many copies of a card do I need to sort of play at the beginning, and even on curve. So you can also put in, it knows that if you put in a 5 cost card, and it knows, assuming you get 1 resource per turn, how likely it is will you have that card in your hand when you also have 5 resources in play. So it can calculate the odds, so you can kind of keep track of how many of any kind of level I need to be playing on curve or to be playing at the beginning. So it's a really useful tool when building a deck.
Definitely. Another tool that I know I use a lot is the Showcase Price Tracker. You guys
That doesn't surprise me you use that one.
Yeah, let me know when to pull the trigger on the Rose Showcase for like $30.
Yeah, that one actually was recommended to us by one of the other content creators who said no one's really sort of tracking these prices, because we didn't we purposely made a decision not to do direct deck tech, like here's what we recommend putting in. You won't find any of that where we say this is the good card, this is the bad card, this is what you should put in your deck. We try to give you that info so that you can decide, because there's just so much of that out there. So one of the other sites suggested this sort of price tracking, and the Showcases is nice if you're a collector, but it's also sort of an indicator we discovered of the meta. That when a card does well, when a leader does well in the meta, right, the price goes up. You can be like, and some prices go up. Some of it's a lagging indicator, like despite Wu, for example, winning the regional with Kira, she didn't shoot up right away, but by next week, I have no doubt Kira's gonna, with PQ season
Well, I
still
think
going.
Kira too
Kira's
has
gonna
been
go up.
around for a while.
Where
you see
so
like
some of it's
things
a
like
lagging
Vader.
indicator, but the one that was really interesting just like a week ago was Grand Inquisitor. It went up like triple. It went from like a $70 to an almost $200.
Sheesh.
Because people are anticipating Legends of the Force cards that they've already seen some spoiled for, and Grand Inquisitor might be a good deck. So people are trying to.
People, there's literally every start of every set. It's like,
I
this
agree.
could work for Grand Inquisitor.
I think if you're probably buying a Grand Inquisitor in hopes he'll be good, you're probably going to be
Sad.
disappointed. But
I
nonetheless,
mean, at
the
this point,
tracker
how many
and the
times do you have to
weekly
fool?
tracking of that lets us sort of predict what people might be trying or thinking is going to be good as well. So we have both the speculation and the lagging indicators. So as well as just useful for collectors to kind of see what's going on. And then
Yeah.
within it, we have our own inside joke that we think Finn is horrible. So
I was gonna bring that up.
so we rate
As
everything
someone who's
relative.
so someone who's open to Finn showcase and felt that heartbreak, I laugh that you guys use him as kind of the benchmark of like under over Finn. So that's great. Yeah.
Oh man.
Awesome.
All right. So it was my idea to kind of go down the route of Data Vault, not really on the sense of trying to deep dive Data Vault itself, but just the obviously downside of Data Vault is the 60 card deck size. But obviously we were seeing it win. When it first came out, a lot of people were all on, well, the rare bases based on my math calculations and this and that aren't useful. They're not going to see real competitive play. It's still going to be defined by those 25 and 30 point bases. So that was kind of my thought behind it, and like how not coming from a TCG background really. Whereas maybe how are we letting our biases kind of influence our thought processes and deck building? What's good? What's not good? Are there things that are overlooked because, hey, maybe it's not better than what you have in your deck currently, but it may not also be worse? I think there's a lot of cards that fall into that category, and that people just like don't want to try a lot of new things just because they already have it in their mind. This is what's worked always. This is how it's always going to work, and this is how it's going to be going forward. So how does Data Vault kind of change that thinking and that bias towards where, hey, maybe 51 cards really isn't that big a deal, or 52, How many times have I heard if you're going to put 51 or 52 cards in there, you're auto losing, or this is just not worth it. Your deck is going to be so inconsistent. It's like, it just doesn't, to me, doesn't seem to hold true. So luckily, the crew over there at Port Depot had this very, very thorough article.
I think literally you
explaining
talked
that.
about this, and the very next day they posted their
You're
article.
like,
Like, well, there it
I'm
is.
like, oh.
So that brings us to the theory of porgativity, how Data Vault warps deck building math. So I got that up on the screen right now. Kind of just the abstract part of it. So kind of I think you put it into basically buckets, and you have kind of these 7 points that we can maybe touch on real quick. But to Nick's points, like like early on, I remember you were always like, I'm gonna play a 51 card deck, 52, it didn't really matter. Honestly, I usually run 51 cards in my deck. There's always that one I don't want to cut, but like I want 2 of something. So I've never really seen too much an issue, especially in a game where you draw 2. But so
I mean, there's a lot of times where I was struggling like very early on with deck building to get it past 56, 55. So and I was like, there's no way I can get down to 50. Here's 52.
I think I remember very early on in the game, I think it was a showdown, I think, at Curio. The winner of the thing, I think he was playing a Krennic Blue, probably, Krennic something. And he had like a 51 or 52 card deck with no sideboard, and he won the whole thing. So I was like, maybe it's okay to go a little bit over.
Yeah, I think and if you read the article, right, we did the abstract because not everyone wants all the jokes. So we were doing a scientific journal article with an abstract before we started.
Can I just say my favorite part of the whole article is at the bottom, the citations.
Ours
So
too,
if you
by the
didn't
way.
read those, go all the way down to the
We
bottom.
wish people got all the way to the bottom. We
Yeah.
wholeheartedly have discussed that internally, that the citations are without a doubt the best part of the whole article. You got to get to the bottom. Even if you skip the article, read the citations.
It's like when I throw in Easter eggs in the other episode, and 10 episodes in, even Paul doesn't realize we have Easter eggs in the other episode.
But yeah, to Nick's point, there's a little bit of a bias from other games. Because typically in other games you draw one, and that's a big deal. Then that just straight up mathematically, the smaller your deck, the more likely you are to draw the card you want when you need it. But this math, and the article doesn't even get into that. The math is thrown off by I get to draw two, and then also if you're, by the way, playing anything like a tech or smuggle cards, where you get to even play off cards you've all previously drawn. The nature of this game is very different. Also, in not to necessarily compare to say like that other game, but Magic, where cards aren't, there is a specific card that is your resource as opposed to any card. And so drawing extra resource cards after you have enough resources, especially if that's the only card you draw that turn, is just horrible. You really want to get that match tight in a lot of other games. And I think what we're seeing with the data vault or people who tend to play over this is also a function of that healthy meta. Because you get to draw two, and one of them gets to be the resource you need, being able to have a wider variety of cards in your deck means you're be more flexible pre-sideboarding. Because you can put those different cards in and then be like, oh, I'm playing against this deck, so I'll resource this one, but keep this one and then change it up. So I think Data Vault, in part, became also popular because now where there was a little bit of the downside to the math, and that still surely exists, I at least also get to offset it with 3 extra life. And I think that's why we're also seeing with a lot more of some of the more controlling decks too, that need to make it to late game. So just a few extra life points might just be enough for them to stabilize and turn that corner.
I can't tell you how many times I stabilized at 30.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where he's like, and then I would just like heal just a little bit, and they're like, I get you right back to 30, and I would have won this game so many
as an
times
aggro
if it wasn't
player,
for that.
I've gotten people to 30 and then lost when they were playing Data Vault or Colossus. I'm like, had you not had that extra life built into your base, I had the game, but I couldn't just do that last little bit. And you were able to completely turn the corner and heal some extra with a vigilance and things along those lines that then just turned it entirely back around on me. One of the, you said the article's detailed. It actually still leaves out a little bit. It discusses obviously the buckets. This presumes there's sort of interchangeable cards. Turn one plays. Okay, 12 turn one plays in a 50 card deck is basically the same as 15 turn one plays in a 60 card deck. And we go into, and by the way, despite all the jokes, the math in there is real.
Yeah.
Charts and graphs, very scientific.
Yeah, that's all actually really legitimate math and charts. But that presumes those 3 extra turn one plays are as good as the other 12. Even in like my Poe Yellow deck, a black one is just inherently better than the resistance fighter. They're almost the same, but black one's just inherently better. So if I want to fill out that 2-drop slot and I'm using those cards, I'd rather always draw a black one. The other one's just to fill out that spot in the deck. And so the more you have to fill it out, the more you get into less good cards. So it depends on whether those buckets, like Power of the Dark Side versus, is it Merciless Contest?
Merciless Contest, yeah.
For a lot of decks, they are practically identical. So that's just now, okay, no problem. I can have 6 of them and they function exactly the same. The other thing that, so we get into a lot of how you offset the 10 extra cards to your benefit. I think one thing we really missed on that article, but was already getting long, is sideboarding. That's the place where you're usually not duplicating something. You're bringing in cards to deal with a specific deck. And so if you have 3 cards, let's say it's Spark of Rebellions you put in to grab those overwhelming barrages that you weren't, for whatever reason, mainboarding I don't know why you wouldn't, but let's say you weren't mainboarding the sparks and because you're just like, or relentlesses or whatever the case might be to deal with some events. Now they're 3 out of 60 instead of 3 out of 50. Your sideboard, I think, is probably the biggest loser in a data vault deck.
Yeah, I mean, like if you put one card in, you're very like not going to see that one card. So as you're saying, like you swap out full sets of cards to be able to, work that into your strategy.
So, so that's what we found with the math. We were surprised at how, though, that, to be honest, when we started calculating it, that if you're worried about turn one plays, like I said, 12 cards out of 50 is 24% of your deck, 15 cards out of 60 is 25. It's actually a little better. And so of your 10 cards, you only need to use 3 of them to keep your turn one plays in check. That gives you 7 more cards to play with, plus the 3 extra life. So it depends. But we didn't focus, like I said, on the downside. By definition, anything you are bucketing improvement on, something else you're not. So something else is decreasing. For everything you can increase or maintain, something must be going down a little bit mathematically.
Yeah, I think that's where like the redundancy and ratios come in, right?
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to hit at, because I know both this hits me in a positive and a negative all the time, is the search mechanics, or what people call tutors for things. How does that align with different games that you've played over the years? Is it better in this game? Does it have enough of an effect to kind of overcome some of that downside of Data Vault or other larger decks?
So glad you brought that up, though, because, by the way, we also have a tool called Search the I forget what we called it exactly, but it's exactly for those tutor effects.
The search.
The search tool. We called it, whoopsie. Use the search, Luke. It actually calculates how big your deck is and how far down you get to dig to find the cards you need and what is the likelihood. And so, again, I think that's one of the things I love about this game is some of that playability, is some of that decision making. Those, what they often refer to as those tutor cards, the ones that let you dig for stuff. If you're playing those, it can also offset some of that bigger deck stuff. Although they become, by definition, less effective, again, depending on how much you duplicate and what's your ratio, less effective the bigger your deck gets. If you're only going down 7 cards and you need to find a certain type of thing for that, depending on what that card searches for, you could whiff, and that could be a real problem. I've definitely played games. I haven't used too much of the search cards, but I've played against people who they dig and then they're like,
I think like the biggest one, obviously, with Data Vault and like Kira or Saj is Vader.
Vader.
It goes down to 10. But then it's like, well, you're only looking for 2, 3, and 1 drops. Like how many times do I hit like Super Laser Blast, Maul, everything I needed coming up? I'll hit it then, and then get like.
And now they're on the bottom, and
right.
A lot of people not only do they want the low cost unit, obviously with Vader, but they want it to be Sentinel. I've noticed, right? Like they want it to be the blocker. So they might get something, but might be another super laser tech that they don't need at this point. They've already ramped enough, and they're like, I'll grab it because it's free.
Right. And then I'll take it with a Sash.
But it's not really what I was hoping for. And so that does take away from the advantage of those cards. So basically the bigger your deck gets, the less useful those are. And yet at the same time, they are potentially what helps offset the downside of having a bigger deck, because you are searching, you are going to get an extra card out of it. You can tell I still have the same mindset as our website of like, I'm not going to tell you which is better. You have to play with that. And I think that's, and you asked how it compares to other games. The funny thing, why I guess, they're called tutors, right, is the magic, the first card that let you search was called Demonic Tutor, and it only cost like 2 resources, and you could go anywhere in your deck and pick any card you wanted. So we have that card in Star Wars Search Your Feelings, but at 4 resources, it gets almost
0
no
play.
play.
2 resources, yeah, I could see myself playing that.
You know, right, at 2 resources, we'd all be playing it. Like, go get any
Yeah.
card you want at any time.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, like, especially how many times I count on like 7, and I'm like, I haven't seen a Super Laser Blast my entire life here in this deck.
Right. So
And
knowing
like,
what's
yeah,
gonna be
I'll
an
play
8
a 2
next
and a
turn.
5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'll take the 2, go get the Super Laser Blast to line up for next turn, play a 5 resource card, plenty big, and then you're set for the next play. But at 4 resources, we rarely see it. That said, I don't think it was a bad decision necessarily on FFG. Maybe 3 would have been a better call, because go figure, Demonic Tutor got like restricted and no one, and you're not allowed to use it. It's like banned in some formats because of how absurdly useful it is at that cost. So
doing FFG, it'll be a cunning 2-cost card next set or two that we'll get.
Or just like every Kiati Mundi you ever see. It's just make him draw.
Nice.
I think at some point people will use the Search Your Feelings. Maybe I'm insane for thinking that. Maybe it'll just find some life in Twin Suns, where
it may find some life in an Eternal format where it becomes absolutely busted. But like,
because you can find that where there's actually. I think that's also where Star Wars doesn't do as quite as well as some other games. Is comboing is hard because of the back and forth. So by the time I get the card, it's not just that it's slow, is that you know what I got. So now you go, oh, I see what you're about to do. I'm going to get rid of the other card that's out there that you were planning on comboing that with. Whereas, in a lot of other games, you do all your actions and then your opponent does all their actions. So there's no interrupting of that. You get to get the card you need to combo with the card you already have, and play it out.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's one of the things I love about Star Wars Unlimited. I don't know if I've said it before, is that back and forth, especially coming from Legion. That's a very big, like, you had your actions back and forth. It was not sitting around waiting for everybody to do their moves, and you're just like, oh my god, in my life. So, it's I guess I see what you're saying. It's harder to combo. I guess maybe that makes those combos more impactful when you're able to pull them off.
One barrage.
Yeah.
And harder doesn't mean impossible, and I don't disagree that. I think that's a great. I mean, they ended up having to ban that DJ because of the DJ tech combo. But on the flip side, before they did that, someone puts down a tech and you're like, takedown. Like, I know where you're going.
I've seen this play out before.
If there is anything I can do to stop that from happening, I'm going to do it now.
It's on site with tech.
Can you go in a little bit into the deck archetypes most affected by this? You have mid-range value engines versus low to the ground aggro. I mean, I think we've seen Data Vault use all the way from Sabine all to very controlling decks like Kira, Saj, and others.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think for controlling, they're enjoying the 3 extra life more than anything. Just that. I think one of the reasons probably Sabine Data Vault has become more popular is for the mirrors. At one of the PQs, not the most recent one, I was doing Sabine Green, and I faced off against Sabine Yellow, and just the 5-point difference, we were basically racing at the same rate, but they had 5 more points, so I lose. So now I think the Sabine Data Vaults are like, go ahead, ECL. I'll take an 8-point lead, because as long as we're racing, basically otherwise playing the same units. Again, with those 10 extra cards, I'll throw in some timely interventions. It's not like I give up.
Now I've got 3.
It's not like I give up ambush as a surprise. So my guess, and I'm just speculating completely, is that the aggro decks that are doing it are planning against the mirror. They're planning against the people who are still using Tarkin Towns and ECLs to try to get early leads, and just going, you can have that because I get 8 more life on you. The advantage you get isn't enough to it isn't compensating for my 8 extra hit points. And then not sure how it's playing out in mid range. Again, we just did the math, but
Yeah,
you have at least as much
Sorry.
insight into how Data Vault's playing into all these other decks as I do.
Yeah, I mean, I can only talk about it from like really the control to like soft control side of it. I enjoy it because it just allows me to not have to make the decisions that I don't want to make. But it does. There's a lot of things I've learned over the time. There's like, all right, it can't just be we're gonna dump every card I like in here and then like figure out the rest. There's a point where I got too much into the tweaks of okay, I've jumped the shark on this. We need to bring it back to where I was going. Like I was messing around with out the airlock. That's trying to find like another alternative to takedown because I felt like I like the 5 drop was really where you go from 3 and ramp up to 5 and then like what am I playing there? Like nothing felt impactful or it just felt like it was underplay. Like if I played takedown, I'm leaving 1 on the board. If I ramped from 3 to 5, I can't really play overwhelming barrage because all I have is 2-drop on there. I'm not flipping Cure out because Asajj is 6. So it was hard to play. Like I felt like a lot of what I was doing there was just not very impactful. But then when I started tweaking a lot of stuff, I'm like, oh, this is just unplayable because you would draw things if you didn't ramp at 3 and you played Power of the Dark Side. Now you're kind of screwed in your 4-drop areas because you had nothing. So now you're playing resupply on 4, and it's probably not as impactful as you would have been if you'd played it at 3. So, and just little decisions like the Vader yellow deck really made me change of like, okay, definitely don't mulligan if I have a 2-drop, space unit. And equaling those out, I think if you look at like Wu's Kira deck and a lot of the other Kira decks too, is just a lot more focus on ground side over space, which they don't have a way of targeting those different units with that pings that I would, and it kind of puts them in a bit more of a disadvantage, which I think Raul kind of alluded to earlier at least. But yeah, no, I love how you broke it down here. One last, I guess, question on this. Do you see anything like changing in the future about how people view deck building overall, or do you think people are still going to kind of be, more stuck in their ways versus that like humility of like, okay, maybe I was wrong, or they're just going to gloss over it?
I think you'll get both. I won't say which because they might listen later. But one of the Porg People guys is like, if it ain't 50 cards, it's wrong. He's like, I don't care. I don't care even with all the results we've been seeing of Data Vault. He's like, skew data. Like he's just like he cannot comprehend in his head because again we're math people. A lot of us, that he cannot comprehend the idea that smaller has to be better. Like to him, smaller has to be better. It means at any given moment, the card you want is more likely to be coming up. I'll give you a hint. It's not the one who wrote the article then.
Elimination.
Because and again, he comes from like I said, originally a Magic background where you're sometimes really trying to top deck, and you're
Yeah.
like, and there are cards that were inherently better than other ones, like even in say a blue deck, like Luke is probably your best hero. So if you're trying to bucket Luke with something else to make up for the fact you put in more cards, why wouldn't you just rather have fewer cards and be more likely to pull your Luke? That's his mindset. He's absolutely on that. Smaller means I can play with the best cards and I'm more likely to get them.
Well, I think there's another factor of decisions being made with incomplete information. So you make decisions, your opponent makes decisions where they don't have all the information available to them to make the right decisions all the time. Like sometimes, you get to see somebody's hand, you know what's coming up. You maybe got to look at their resources, something like that. But those are pretty far in between now. Nobody's playing the Viper probe droid anymore. That was, I guess, one of the big advantages there. But then Smuggle, changes all of that. Like, oh, okay, yeah, I can take a, hit from your Quinlan at 3, but now you smuggle out a hotshot blaster, and now it's 5, and that's whereas maybe I should have thrown out a Sentinel there, lost the Sentinel, not taking a hit, something like that.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think you're right. I think all the calculations are messed up, not messed up, but like hard to do, and that this does change the nature. And I think it will for many people, not the one guy, but for many people, they can possibly think differently because of things like Smuggle, things like drawing 2. I think that's a huge piece of it, and actually having a healthy meta. In Richmond, 20 different leaders made the top 64. Like I said earlier, one of the best
should
things
have been
about
21.
Was it 21?
Should have been 21. It should have been.
Oh yeah.
I was literally a game away.
Yeah. The 20, right? That the idea of essentially pre-boarding, instead of waiting for your sideboard, having 10 extra cards so that you're more flexible in a wide meta because you get to draw 2 and resource, and no card is wasted as a result because you can resource it or not. I think it does change the math quite a bit. And what we did see when we wrote the article is really the difference between 50 and 60 is not as drastic as people would expect it to potentially be. I don't think anyone's going to start building 120 card decks. Also, I think it matters on how many sets there are, right? At 4 sets, and once we get to 5 sets and eventually 6, the ability to have more cards in each slot that do good, that aren't like, I have to play a lesser version because I'm playing more cards.
Right.
So I wonder what will happen after rotation when we go back down to only 4 sets. I mean, we're at 4 now, but after 4 sets and we lose a bunch, will we feel there aren't enough good cards to create those buckets and we start to, but when we're at 6 sets, why not? There's probably enough cards of every level to really have that efficiency, and why not gain the extra life in the process?
Definitely. Well, this card's going to be around for quite a while with the rotations, as you said. So, I'm curious to see if all the bases of the next set, where it gives you the force, if those are going to overshadow, Data Vault, or if there's going to be enough units and abilities that give you the force that you don't need those decks, and we stick with Data Vault. But this Data Vault's here to stay for a while, I think. So just something to consider when you're building your decks. Want to give Paul a real quick chance to chime in on Data Vault?
After everything that we've gone over, some of the factors that I like about Data Vault and the way that I have built with it is to build a deck like I'm building 50, then do my sideboard, and then I'm shoving that sideboard into the deck. It's like, all right, here's my 60. And now I can go and look at a wider berth of sideboarding situations. It's like, what's prevalent right now? Oh, Cad Banes and Quinlan's and Kira's and in my, circumstances. And then what's the most helpful cards that are really sideboard actions here.
Mhm.
And I found that like with 60 in and 10 on the side, I have room to put in regional governors or pure shutdown cards. I can add some rivals. I can have a rivals fall on the main board and 2 on the sideboard and not stress about if I'm going to pull that rivals fall or not, or that I have to have it. And if it turns out like I actually do have to have it, I can throw the other 2 in from the sideboard. It's going to come. So that's really where I'm at with Data Vault and how I feel about it outside of the mathematics and everything that we've already discussed. It allows me to theoretically have a 20 card sideboard and throw the 10 that I really want the most out of those 20 cards in the deck.
That's one way to look at it, building for sure. Awesome. All right. I think with that, let's move on to some quick fire spoilers. Just some of our favorite ones, real quick. So let me go ahead and lead it off. I got on the screen Shin Hati and Balin Skull.
And Daddy.
So, I'm a huge fan of the Ahsoka show, so it was really cool to see these two. So I'm not sure if I've seen it, but there's that key art that just has Ahsoka and Balin fighting. Have we seen that on a card yet?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to whatever that thing does. So that's gonna be fun. But I do like this combo here. I know some of the synergy is not very apparent immediately, but being able to drop Shen on turn resource turn 3, attack with her on 4, knock your shield off, and then replay her again on turn 5 with Balin. That's a pretty good combo, I think. Just to keep your board full and maybe hopefully trade with something with that 4 attack. Plus she's hidden, so she can't be attacked. That turn you get dropped. Other good uses for Balin is like replaying Bazine. So I know McClunky, I think it's McClunky, the one lets you replay what's the card that lets you replay a unit for free?
Oh,
basically?
you're talking about
adventure.
the new adventure, yeah.
There's that
Double
one.
yellow.
There's that one. There's also the one where you take the unit back, you deal 3 damage or something, and then
Yeah,
you play it again.
McClunky, you don't get to play it again for free, but Bazine only costs 1, and so you're like, sure.
Yeah.
Pull her up, do 3 damage, throw her back down, get another card.
Yeah, so I just with that, Valley Train, yet another way to play her again, or just something cheaper. That if they're still alive. So those are 2 cards that I think that came out either today or yesterday that I was excited to see. So those are some of my favorite picks. Looking forward to some combos with them. I'm going to take it over to, let's go Jeff. Of course, we had to bring in the Curious Flock for him to talk about.
Yeah, so obviously I'm biased toward a Curious Flock for multiple reasons. One, it's a flock of Porgs. 2, Porg Depot got to spoil it. It was really fun being on that sort of spoil side because they sent it like a week in advance, and we had to, so knew it was coming. Which also came because the original just Porg card they spoiled at the end of a stream randomly, and we're like, we've been watching, and we're like, how did you not let us spoil that?
Well, I think this is
they're
cooler.
like, don't worry, we got something for you. And then they later sent us Curious Flock. But besides being the bias there, and I don't know how to play out, I think it'll be great in draft, to be honest. But because you can play it in any deck, and no matter how many resources you have at any time, it maxes out whatever resources, so I don't know how it'll play out in certain decks. Obviously, it's also creature, which means it can, there's going to be obviously a lot of creature synergy in this set, so it might also benefit from that. The new Kanan leader lets you even play it for 1 cheaper, so it actually plays even a little bit more powerfully. Who knows? Maybe Finn, despite all our Finn jokes, Finn will just turn one of those experience into a shield and just keep doing it, just so he slightly gets weaker over time. Just keep turning an experience into a shield every turn. I don't know. Maybe it'll be great in a Finn deck.
Watch Finn be a meta deck by the end of the cycle.
Yeah, but I do like the frequency with which, especially my current deck that I am playing, how often I'll have late game, I only have 1 or 2 cards, and I can play one of them, but not both of them based on the number of resources I have. The idea that no matter what, that guy goes down, for whatever resources you have. I think he could be kind of, just a useful, playful card in a lot of decks, at least for fun, if not even potentially see some competitive play. And I think he's also just going to be great in draft and sealed due to his genericness and how much he could be a big unit. I mean, heck, he's even an ECL possible target because he technically only costs one.
Yep.
Wanted to jump in on this, like listening to him talk about it. Like, wait until you pop it on someone's crate dragon, and it's like, look at my 11-11 right here, buddy, like coming at you. And what are you
11-11
getting hit by for the
ambush.
crate?
Yeah, well,
Nothing.
can only go up to 6.
He can only go up to, so he can be a 7/7 if you spend the extra 6 resources, because he has a max of 6. But still, technically, his cost is 1. So Crate Dragon only gets to do 1 back at him, 1 damage.
And then overwhelm.
So,
Overwhelming barrage.
Right. So, so he's only got a 1 cost as his technical cost. That means he's easily searchable with some of those things that let you grab him, like a U-wing reinforcement. He only counts as a 1 cost. All those things that you can do with him. So I'm actually kind of curious how he'll play out. Despite my also bias, but
fun card for sure. Also, and you also wanted to talk about As I Have Foreseen.
Yeah, I'm always a fan of seeing a card that cost cheats. And this one, the possibility of saving 3 to play a card off the top of your deck, I mean, that's just a lot. That means you could be playing a fairly expensive card fairly early. In a lot of decks, if you're playing an aggro S deck, you probably don't even need to know what card's coming. It just means for 1, I get to play it. Like, there's a good chance it's just a 3 cost or a 4 cost, so I can probably play it fairly safely. If you're playing Thrawn 1, where you know what your top card is, you can guarantee playing it at the right time.
Kind of no-brainer in that deck.
Right. So, right. Like, why would you? If you're playing Thrawn 1, you're like, oh, perfect time to play this card, knowing exactly what's coming next. You could really get some pretty big plays off that. I really liked, the previous set. Now there are 2 of them. I immediately tried to figure out. I know a lot of people were playing with Underworld. I immediately built like a Han 1 blue deck to just try to play it with Force cards, just Force and Jedi. Could I get a big Jedi out that many turns early? So again, I favor toward the aggro side. So anytime I can get both fast and big, I'm just like, please. So that's why I like that card.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to go over to Paul next. So I'm going to start with Morgan Elsbeth.
I don't think that's me. That might be Nick.
That's
Nick.
me.
All right, let's go with Nick then.
I was actually gonna wait till after Paul goes because one of his actually flows into Morgan Elsbeth.
Okay. Do you want me to switch to him?
Yeah, go ahead and switch to
Okay.
him because it's gonna become important when I talk about Morgan.
All right. So let's start with Vader then. New Vader.
All right. So like New Vader is clearly a bomb, right? Like I picked 2 bombs for my cards. New Vader, if you haven't gotten to test it or proxy it in and give this a shot yet, it's nasty in any circumstance. It's a big bodied unit. I mean, maybe not as big as that we want for 6 resources, but you're giving a unit a shield. You're giving an enemy unit a shield. But we all know the huge upside with being able to just eliminate any enemy regardless on the board. When you throw ambush on this thing, it is a force to be reckoned with for sure. I was playing over like webcam with a couple of guys from our league and just playing, having fun, and dropped the Vader proxy test card on them, and they were like, "That's it, man. I quit, bro. Like, you got it." So, I'm not saying it's gonna break anything. I like what it's doing for vigilance and the extra control that it brings, and it's a lot of fun to play.
Definitely. Yeah, and just a side note, the art on that, probably one of my favorite scenes in all of Star Wars is Darth Vader and Rebels, the episode where he fights Ahsoka. He is using the Force to control his tie and floating down very, very dramatically, as Anakin tends to do, to the battlefield. So that was just awesome. They picked that.
Dope
Yeah, I
scene
think it
for
might
sure.
bring back Kira ECL over Kira Data Vault, though.
Yeah.
ECL.
Just wait.
Yep, that's
Just wait.
all right. And then you also had Kiadi Mundi on there.
So Kiadi-Mundi, just because I really like JTL Luke Pilot Leader, and I know that there's a lot of red heroism aggro with like Sabine and stuff like that, and a lot of things that I saw that was happening to me is there is no amazing Force slot. I'm sure there's a couple, like, don't get me wrong, there's a couple of cards that fit there, but nothing amazing. And playing Luke and playing Sabine, if you play too quick, you can easily run out of gas, and that hand draw can that can really do some serious work.
Yeah, 2 cards is it's a whole turn worth of drawing cards, so it's a
Right.
big swing.
So I felt like it's great in the 4 slot. It's a decent enough body, 4/4/4 all the way around for 4. But getting to draw those 2 cards is just oof.
Yeah.
It can save your aggro game if it failed due to control or whatever. It might bring in a little bit more dynamics with that and giving you some staying power against certain decks.
I just want to know who over there thinks that like Kiadi-Mundi just sits there and draws cards all day long.
It's the forehead,
Like,
man.
how-
It's like, man, this guy's a thinker.
Big brain moves.
That's our thing. We're
Yeah.
going. Every Kiadi-Mundi card is gonna have some sort of draw mechanic.
Yeah. So it's that big brain. He's thinking 4D chess, thinking ahead of you. Not enough ahead of the Emperor though to avoid Order 66.
Yeah. Didn't
Yep.
draw the card he needed on time.
Nope.
Should have had that three.
All right, so let's go over to you, Nick. I got both your cards up on screen here.
All right, Morgan Elsbeth. So
Yep.
if you like Vader at 6, how do you like him at 5? And give you a chance to timely intervention him as well. So there you go. You don't need ECL. You can still play your Data Vault, your attack with Morgan Elsbeth, and then ECL in your Vader. Same effect. I think it's awesome. Or you wait to do it on turn 7 when you have the other Vader, you're auto deleting something, and it's like, oh, I guess I auto deleted what I was gonna ambush into. Oh no. Like now I have a shield and what I wanted to get rid of is gone.
So I'm
you know,
wondering
even-
if I'm wondering if I put up the wrong Morgan Elsbeth. Were you talking about the new leader or the old card, the old unit?
No, it's the new. Like it must have been spoiled today because I saw it on the drive home. It's a green 5 cost 3/6.
Okay, then yeah, I have the right one. Okay.
When you on attack, you get to play your next unit for 1 less.
That's a share keyword with a friendly unit.
Yeah, it's a force. Morgan Elsbeth's a
Keyword,
force.
not Vader.
What's that?
Oh, keyword? Or is
Yeah,
it trait?
it has to be a keyword, not trait.
Oh, no, I misread that
Yeah.
then. Hold on.
So I was trying to figure out. I was like, what?
I was like, oh, this is going to be great.
Cooking something here. We'll see.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Let me look at that again then. But, I mean, all right. So it's got to share a trait.
That's share a keyword. Yeah.
Keyword. So ambush or shielded or something like that.
So, I mean, that Vader's a force user, right?
Yeah, but he doesn't have any keywords.
Yeah, that's true.
Keyword with a friendly unit. All right, fine.
Yeah.
All right, not as good as I thought.
Still, yeah. Well, still an interesting leader, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of
Oh,
stuff
is
we're
it a
seeing.
leader unit too?
It is a leader, yeah.
Oh, I didn't even see that. Oh,
Yeah.
shoot. All kinds of
all good.
These are friendly Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I thought, because I just pulled it up on SWU, DB, and it just had the front version of it. Not that I was driving. I was stopped. I was stopped at the time I looked at it. Stopped at a stoplight. Yeah, didn't realize it was a unit leader.
But
Yeah,
this
no, she
synergizes
was
pretty
pretty
well with
interesting
I was gonna say Shannon and Balin. They both have hidden, so like this would make them one cheaper.
Yeah,
Which is
hiddens
pretty
will be
good.
great with her potentially ambushing into ambushing.
Yeah.
repeatedly.
All right. So Vader's 7 cost now down to 6 cost. Old set 1 Vader, I guess,
Sure.
if you like that one.
He's still
Yeah, I like
so
it at
good.
6.
Yeah.
Find something with ambush at 5 or 4 that
Fair.
stays on the board.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how this leader does. Feels like if we get enough keyword support, it could be pretty
Yeah,
good.
I mean, there's a lot of raid in this set too. That to play your raids a turn sooner.
Yeah. I think there's going to be plenty of uses for this card now that I'm looking at it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of plenty of
3/6 is
uses,
not bad either.
your second choice I think will see a lot of play too. The Acolyte of the
So,
Beyond.
yes. And now I'm almost certain I know what this does. My reason for choosing this, I'm going to pull it up just in case here.
Yep. We got it on
You guys
screen.
may not have seen this either before now. For anybody listening, just listening, it's 2 cost, 2/3 Sith. On attack, when defeated, the force is with you. So create that force token. I know this is kind of some you were mentioning earlier of, hey, well, can we still use our old bases and create the force enough? Or just create it enough to a point where, like, I think the green rare base is basically 3 times a game. Is that like what you get with it? I can't remember.
One of them does.
Anyway, one of them gives you the force X amount of times in a game. That's not every turn. It's just an action to create it. So that tells me that there's kind of like, all right, maybe 3 or 4 times you're going to use the force throughout your game. So if you can create it 3 times with other cards, it's probably good enough to just do on its own. Maybe.
Yeah. I think this is good to cheap. I don't know if you mentioned it's aggression villainy card.
Yeah, aggression villainy. Sorry.
Yeah, and at 2 costs with a when defeated trigger, you're almost guaranteeing basically that you'll get the force from it one way or the other, unless someone glories it or something wild. But yeah, I think we'll see some good amount of play.
You're wasting no glory on this. That's okay.
Yeah, yeah, you have probably other problems for them.
Yeah,
cool. All right. Awesome. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap it up here. Let's bring it back. I want to thank Jeff so much. Thank you for your time, man. Thank you for coming out.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks for hanging
out with us, talking. I know you're super busy on weeknights, so we don't get to see you as often as we'd like. And it's always a pleasure when we get to come out to your hobby place. We have, speaking of your hobby place, we have a showdown tomorrow. Excited for that. I imagine Nick is going.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Shoot.
Yeah.
I guess so.
You coming, Jeff?
I signed up.
I will unfortunately be working as I tend to do on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
You should cancel.
Don't you want to stay there with us till like 1
a.m.?
Kids can
suffer.
I'll come over after I'm done just to see how everybody's doing. Maybe
we'll be there till 1 a.m. probably.
If it's this point and they're failing their GRE, their SATs, they need to.
It's my LSAT class there. Final lesson before their test. The last one.
Gosh.
Oh.
Yeah, they can suffer. They're fine.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for coming out, or thank you, Jeff, for joining us. To our listeners, please check out the Porg Depot. They got a lot of really cool tools that we talked about. I think most of them, not all of them. They post articles very consistently with breakdowns on the math if you're into that. But just very very tongue-in-cheek Porg puns that hopefully you like too because they're funny.
Not everybody does.
yeah. And then I appreciate you have a stack of like tokens that you hand out usually at weeklies with like TIE pilots or TIE fighters, X-wings, B1s. Those are cool. Very, very, very. Everyone I've seen you give them to is very appreciative. So that's great. I think with that,
good luck to all of you at the showdown tomorrow.
Thank you. I'm gonna need it.
But I can't.
I keep forgetting it's Tuesday right now.
I'd love to have tried my new version of Po Yellow, but it'll have to wait. So good luck to you all. and I'll find out what you're playing later.
Yeah. Awesome.
It'll be inside
Alright.
Data Vault.
Yeah.
Because that's all I got built right now. So
I probably don't have time to build anything.
can't
besides-
change in my mind now.
Paul, imagine you can't make it tomorrow.
Unfortunately not.
No.
Stuck 2 hours
Paul-
away, man. I wish I could, but
We'll
back
get
to the
you-
boat.
We'll get you back soon. Also,
Hopefully.
I'm probably just playing Kira Data Vault. I'm not gonna have time to build anything else. So I had a unfortunate adventure over the weekend where my front tires were
Ooh.
punctured. I was trying to go off roading, so that took up a lot of my time. But everything's good. All right. So for Epic Action Remote,
I'm Nick.
Paul?
And I guess I'm guest Jeff.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
Jeff.
Thanks for joining us. All right. Till next time, guys.